Well, I don't know about you, but I love Easter. I love the daffodils. I love the bank holiday, and I love looking forward to opening Easter eggs and sharing the surprises that we find in them. I think probably the thing that I most like about Easter is that it's the sign of something new. The dark of winter's behind us, and we've got the freshness of spring, promising hopefully a warm summer to come, and all the fun that that brings. Well, today's Maundy Thursday, and it's actually the beginning part of the sad side of Easter in one sense. Today was the day when Jesus asked his disciples to come together and have a meal with him. It's where the Church of England and a lot of other churches get the idea of Holy Communion or Last Supper or Eucharist from. And we very often concentrate on the fact that it was the foundation of that Last Supper or the Eucharist, but we forget sometimes the significance of it. You know, the disciples were Jews, as was Jesus, and the Passover for them was a sign that they celebrated every year to remember being set free from captivity. They remembered every year that they became a nation and they became a people, and they were free from oppression, they were free from slavery, and they became a nation in their own right. So it was a very significant time, but it was a time that was always spent with family. In fact, that's how Passover was set up. It was to be a time of family. So it's rather strange that Jesus invited his disciples, not his mother or brothers or sisters, but his disciples to celebrate Passover with him. And as I thought about this, I began to realize that there's a significance here that we perhaps have missed. You know, Jesus came to draw us back into God's family. Bizarrely, though, he chose the most ragtail, ragbob group of people. Fishermen, tax collectors, people who were really disliked. There don't appear to have been any great intellectuals, certainly no one with political affiliations or anyone who was of great significance. They were just ordinary folk, very much like you and I. And yet Jesus drew them together to become the foundation of his family, of God's family, that would later become the church. So what he did was he gathered them together. We know the story probably of one man called Judas who decided that he would sell out on Jesus. He earned some money by betraying him and actually led to Jesus' death. But what is really interesting is that not only was he invited to that Last Supper, to that family meal, but Jesus washed his feet. Instead of taking a position of leadership and authority, as we see so much in the world today, Jesus bent down and washed the feet of every one of his disciples, the role that a servant would normally take. And Judas was part of that group. And so was Peter. Peter eventually became the one that the church was built upon. But he at that time was very full of himself. He was arrogant, and he was absolutely certain that he'd never let Jesus down. And yet those two men let Jesus down at the vital time. Judas went off in the middle of the meal to betray him to the religious leaders. And after Jesus had been captured, Peter betrayed him, denying he'd ever known him at all. You know, that seems sad, really. And you do wonder why the Bible would tell a story like that. Why would it speak of failure? Why wouldn't it just tell a story of success? Because the Bible is telling us about how the world really is. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't try to be something that it isn't. And it tells us that actually each one of us are a bit like that. But despite being a bit like that, Jesus still invites us to be part of his family, to share a meal with him, to be part of the group that he loves. So this Easter, as you maybe think about Easter eggs and you think about bank holidays, and you maybe plan your holidays to come, just remember that it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how bad you may think you are. It doesn't matter how good you may think you are. You're invited to join Jesus at his table, to become part of his family, and to spend your rest of your life knowing that you are loved and valued and cherished, as each one of those disciples, apart from Judas, did. Judas had the same opportunity as each one of us does, but he chose to turn his back on it, and he was the one that was lost out and forever known as the one who betrayed Jesus. So this Easter, take an opportunity, just 5 minutes out of time, to just think, am I part of a family that loves me? Am I desperate to be valued and loved? Am I someone who has perhaps lived a life full of shame and guilt, or have hated myself even? Well, this Easter, know that you are loved by Jesus and you are welcome to become part of his family. Here at St Mary's, we welcome everybody. There are no criteria for anyone to come and join us, but you are welcome to be part of God's family with us. Thank you and a happy Easter.